no longer am I opening the door and saying, do you like this house? I'm going to put an offer in for you and just spend as much as it takes to win the house. It's about making your clients feel comfortable and understanding, and when they feel educated, then they become secure in actually making those moves. I find that a lot of agents, especially when they start, they spend all this money on getting the perfect color scheme and looking all perfect on Instagram, and that's their brand, but is it really your brand? So I started just filming videos about, I want to educate my clients. I want you to feel like you can come to me if you have a problem 3 years down the road and your toilet just exploded because you don't have a contact. You know that I'm going to answer my phone.
So I guess I'm really grateful for the fact that, shout out to Tyler Wolburn from the REC team, connected me with you years ago. My niece was actually looking for a property, and obviously we take care of our family. And I said, give me your best agent. And Brooke got the bat signal. She absolutely crushed it. Sasha had actually said, she's a shark. And I was like, I like that. Real estate's interesting because in the referral space, a lot of times you consumers or people, ask your friend, hey, do you know anybody somewhere? And they just make a phone call and you get some junior person that was on desk duty that is probably not the best agent for you. I wanted to introduce Brooke in that light because she is a killer. She's very nice. She's not a shark, but she can be when it comes to negotiation. But why don't you give a bit of a background on the real estate side first, and then we'll get into the podcast and all things.
Yeah, for sure. So when we first got introduced, I was on a team at that time, I think probably about 3 years ago. I left about 2 years ago. And my real estate career has really evolved in the past 8 years. So it's my 8th year as a realtor. In the past 2.5 years, the volume was increasing. So I've started my own team. When you and I got introduced, I was on the REC team, so I started with pre-construction a lot. I wasn't one of those agents that sold a bunch of tiny condos in the sky just to get paid. We were very strategic on pre-construction, did a lot of townhouses, and so that's where it started. Mm-hmm. And then it transitioned to being mainly residential in the Halton and Hamilton space. So it's about 2.5-hour drive to get here, but thank you so much for having me. I'm happy I trekked out here. And then at this point, I have 8 agents on my team. So we're called the Brooke Hicks Team. We do about 180 transactions a year. I have a couple agents that are leasing specialists at this time because I work with a lot of investors. So we have, at any given time, I probably have about 26 leases up right now. So I have agents handling that front. Pre-construction has kind of fallen away, as any realtor would know. Pre-construction is not a strong market anymore with all of the pain. Our territory is quite large just because I do have agents that live in Toronto and then some that live in Niagara. So we have a big reach for where we're able to service our clients, but we're quite busy at this point and happy to have served your family, and they seem to be happy. I love them. They're great.
Well, 5 offers sold very, very quickly with no conditions, and they had an offer on another property, right? And I think the dynamic of what we're dealing with in the market right now is interesting because perception has everything to do with how people are approaching the real estate market. What is your perception of the overall market right now that we're in, and how are you adapting your pricing, marketing, negotiation strategy?
I find that there's a lot of fear in the market. So especially when I'm on the buyer side, I find that clients or buyers don't really know what's going on. They don't understand what anything is worth either. So for a long time, I noticed, the uptick in how many realtors came into the business when we were in a peak market, and it seems so easy. You put a sign on the lawn and the house is sold. We're back to really needing to educate our clients, right? No longer am I opening the door and saying, do you like this house? I'm going to put an offer in for you and just spend as much as it takes to win the house. It's about making your clients feel comfortable and understanding, and when they feel educated, then they become secure in actually making those moves. So there's a lot more pain in the market. It used to be, more fun. You sell the house, they move on to the, upsize, or they're downsizing, and there is a lot more fun to it. You said congratulations a lot more than, now somebody calls you and needs to sell because they can't afford their mortgage, or, something's happening in their lives where it's kind of a balance between, this is the most exciting time in your life, to, I'm going to help you through this. So it's a little bit of navigating and really balancing of what that client actually needs and being of service to them rather than selling them something. So if I can be of service to you, whether it takes a day or a year, it's like, what do you need and how can I educate you through this? Rather than just opening a door and winning them the house, which technically happened for a lot of time, a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of short-term transactions that happened with, I mean, when we saw it during the peak, we were having conversations with sellers and buyers about opportunity cost and risk. Like, we don't get paid to set up a portal. You find your own property, we open the door, and you buy it. That's what real estate agents used to do. It used to be the book, right? You paid the agent because they were the only ones who knew what that house sold for. Now everybody knows. We get paid for the interpretation of the data, right? Well, like, why did it sell for that? Was there a situation with the listing agent who was terrible and undersold it because they sold it too quickly without proper marketing exposure? Or when they handled the multiple offer situation, we just had one. I had a buyer that had a home, needed to have a home sale condition, and we were going up against another offer that didn't. And I knew that they didn't have one because of a relationship I had. And I'm like, here's the 3 different ways that it's going to work out. And I know this house has been on the market for a while. There's an opportunity cost for you guys with this because your family literally lives 1 street over. So like the reason they wanted to be in this specific area superseded just the house and the square footage and the bedrooms and the bathrooms. So we had like an hour and a half long conversation. I didn't even think they were going to write the offer, and they did. I'm like, hey, now I got to make the case to the agent that I'm actually going to sell their house really quickly to even have a shot. We got it. But a lot of it came down to, when I was talking to him yesterday about it when we did the video, everything came down to everything but what you could see on MLS. I want to flip to the podcast side because I think what you guys are doing with the Canadian Real Estate Homefront Podcast is fascinating and speaks to like how hardcore you're educating yourself beyond just the real estate component to see how it trickles down into it. So for those that don't know, give a little bit of background. How'd you start the podcast? Where is it at now? And how valuable is it to you?
Yeah, it's funny. I started using social media as one of the biggest pillars to my business. Like, of course, we, have our pillars of how we bring in business. And social media became one that I not only enjoyed, but was working for me. So I wanted to start a video series to educate my clients. So at first, I didn't have a name. I just brought in my home inspector. I brought in my roofer. I brought in my plumber. And I said, let's do a series that we can have kind of in a folder that clients can go through of everything you need to know about what a home inspection entails, what is plumbing issues and what are common things that you see, what are, costs that are associated with a leaking roof, et cetera, things like that. So that was kind of the vision for starting a podcast. I started in one of my photographers that I used to work with, a little space. It was like cringy. Like I look back on those videos and I archive them because I'm like, these are very cringy, but I just wanted to get things out there that I guess I didn't see other realtors doing. From there, I had my now partner, Cortez, who does that podcast with me. He came on as a guest because he has a background in economics. So I was like, hey, come on and educate my clients on the economy. And then...
And this was approximately when?
I think about 2 years ago now.
Okay. So as things were kind of pivoting and people were getting really stressed, reading a lot of headlines about it.
Yes.
Inflation.
Yeah, inflation was a buzzword. Inflation was the buzzword of that year. And then it ended up being a really good conversation. And since my real estate business was also really busy, he wanted to partner with me. And I thought, because I'm big on delegating the tasks underneath the day-to-day. So I thought, okay, if he's very passionate about this and wants to kind of streamline this with me, then I see opportunity there. Yeah. So we agreed to partner. We came up with a name, and then we moved to a big studio in Toronto, which is still where we shoot now. So we
with neighborhood, are you?
I'm not in no. I'd have to drive into Toronto, which is about with no traffic. I can get there in 30 minutes, but it usually takes me an hour and a half.
It's not bad. It's like what I said earlier. You're in traffic.
Not too far. Yeah. So we still shoot there, and they've been great because they're quite professional, and it's what it takes, especially with how social media evolves. You need to have the quality, right? If you don't have the quality, people go past your video in 2 seconds. It's similar to a listing, right? You can see what stands out in the listing, photos being the main one.
I was looking at one of the videos the other day. I'm like, you had all those lights behind you. Like, where are they? That setup seems insane for a podcast. Cool. Yeah. Was there like a trigger point where you guys started going viral with it and started getting a ton of views?
Yeah, when we started making reels and having our own Instagram, it grew insanely quick. Where I'm like, this is crazy. Like, it wasn't even really the vision. Again, it was mainly for my own clients to educate them. And then, like I said, Cortez is very economical. He's always reading the headlines, and that's kind of who he is. And then he would come with a list of things to talk about, and it would always be, what's happening in the economy, what's happening in the States, because that's been affecting us and causing some insecurities with Canadians for a long time now, and a lot of political theater, we like to call it. It's another thing that everyone's talking about.
Sure.
So rather than just real estate, we're talking about what everyone's talking about, because I find that people want to know and understand what's happening. And an interesting thing that we did a massive poll is what keeps you on the sidelines or what keeps you from selling or from buying. And it's not affordability, even though that is a crisis in and of itself.
Sure.
It's economic uncertainty. So that answer was far beyond affordability as the reason why people stay put.
Yeah.
So the goal became, we're going to educate, we're going to read the headlines and dive into it and then share our opinions. And of course, some people have differing opinions. And then we do it as a high level. So even though it's turned into kind of a political podcast at this point, almost, just because that's what's happening
right now.
So, right?
Stateside, up here, provincially, federal.
Rampant. There's so much going on. So I would say we're kind of political. One of the Liberal leader of Ontario, Bonnie Crombie, was on last week. I've been trying to get Doug Ford on, have been unsuccessful at
If anybody
reaching
knows
him,
Doug Ford.
but I would love to have him on. His competitors have been on, so we'd love to hear from him. But
how do you navigate the waters of impartiality so that you're not being in one camp versus the other? Because I think the way you do it is out of curiosity to actually hear what people think, right?
Yeah, and it's and I will always put a disclaimer that it's, I'm not trying to influence anybody else, but rather educate people. And I have my own views, and it's, for example, when I was interviewing Bonnie Crombie, the questions I asked her were for me to understand her policies, right? So she would say something high level of, one of her policies is to axe the land transfer tax for first-time buyers and seniors that are downsizing. Well, I want to know where, that's a big revenue stream for the government. Where is that being made up, right? Is our land, or is our house taxes, is it going to go up? Because you need to make that money up. So it's a lot of me trying to understand her policies rather than shutting it down, because I'm just a realtor at the end of the day, and just helping put out more information. Because when you hear these politicians campaigning, it's very high level, right? It doesn't get so into detail unless you're really into it. So I try to just break things down. You see a headline of, Trump threatening tariffs. So what does that mean? And where do you find the information as to what it means? Because really all that's doing is making people fearful. So,
well, I've seen that a lot lately. It's actually why I made that post last night about people getting offline. There's a trend amongst influencers and creators, you can probably speak to this, where I don't think you fall into this camp at all, but there are people who will go one side or the other and go so extreme to say things to rage bait people into crazy comment conversations on their feeds, and they're getting wild success from it. But are they getting the right type of success because they build an audience that is just negativity in their feed and aren't actually converting it to anything substantial and not adding to bringing people together who may have differing beliefs and views, and pragmatically just trying to create better communities? Where I think your podcast, the fact that you want to talk to Bonnie, you want to talk to Doug, ask about policies, is where the future of a lot of media is going, where you're noticing, say, politicians that come in, the three that were just here, gave some pretty good insights that wasn't just a politician's answer, that talked about the good and bad of different communities, where sometimes when you're seeing the sound bites online, it's just the political answer that isn't giving you anything beyond the political answer, right? And I think that's got to be a fun place for you to try and navigate of like, how do you create this new path, have conversations with people who are the old guard in new media, right?
Right. And it's funny because you ask, your standard, just anybody on the street, what are your political views? Are you liberal, conservative? They'll tell you one, and then you ask them why, and hear the silence, because they don't know why, right? Because media will drive you any which way. And what's happened with the federal government and how, the economy is not doing great. Let's be honest. People are very against liberal, and, as they should be. Like, we have gone downhill since, the last 5 years, and whether people are still liberal, that's okay too. But they don't know why they're one way. And the media frames things a lot like these people that are very one-sided. So even the news too. So if you watch Fox News versus CNN, you're going to be
Theater, what you were talking
primed
about
on
earlier.
on your beliefs, right? If I only have access to CNN versus if I only have access to Fox News, they're going to shape my beliefs. But
Yeah.
am I getting the whole pool of information broken down in a non-biased way? No. It is the most biased thing you can watch is the news. So it's more of, I don't even really say my views on my podcast, because I have a lot of people reach out and ask and straight up ask me. So
Sure.
it's a telltale sign that it's not clear.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, they want to jersey, right? They want to say like, you're on my side and look at she's my person now. You're on my team.
right.
And I laugh because I all walks of life. One of my best friends is an atheist. I'm a Christian. We can go have lunch and he can tell me why he doesn't believe in God and that I should read Richard Dawkins, and I can tell him to read The Devil's Delusion, and we can have a conversation as friends. It doesn't mean that he's not a good person or I'm not a good person. I think where I get really concerned is when I see people that fall in those camps get so anti the other people, they're not even willing to build a bridge or give an olive branch, because it's a team sport. It's the Bruins versus the Habs. And it's like, oh my gosh, like if you're not on this team, you're an idiot, and everything you think,
Yes.
it doesn't make sense. I think it's interesting because on the political side, you should be able to steel man what are good concepts that you may have on your platform that should be integrated, and what are good concepts that I have, versus every 4 years, we're going to scrap everything you did and then bring in all of our ideas, and then us as the population don't get anywhere further ahead, right?
Right. Yeah, it's been quite, like I even think about a couple years ago, politics wasn't as talked about.
Sure.
Like it was, but at the same time it wasn't. It wasn't
Sensationalized at all.
No, and there's such a divide, which is unfortunate to see, especially with, Canadians. Like we're known for being, like so patriotic and we love our country, and just to see the divide in the last couple of years has been sad, right? So it's bringing it down to a human level too of, whether your beliefs are this or this. There is at the end of the day some positives to both. I listened to her and I didn't disagree with everything she said, although I am conservative at this point in time, and that's personal to me because of my personal situation, my career, and but I didn't disagree with her 100%. And if there was something that I did disagree with her on, I didn't like say to her face,
Sure.
I disagree with you because this. I just kind of pressed her. It's like, okay, totally understand what you're saying, but what about this part?
Interesting.
I need to understand the reason for that, because these politicians, I don't think she's a bad person or a liberal is a bad person. They have just a different vision for where they want things to go, and I want to understand that vision rather than just be against you. I want to see like where's the end goal, and understand it, especially if I disagree. I can disagree, but still understand why she's doing something, and understand that it's not so that Canadians are hurt at the end of the day. I don't think anyone's trying to hurt anyone. They have different beliefs on how to help Canadians.
Yeah, and if you go back to the inception of why you started these conversations and podcasts, it was to serve your clients of like, how could you navigate this marketplace where we don't have any certainty from a political level, from a market level, and then dealing with a city that is in a growth stage, in a country that is kind of stalled from a GDP perspective. But I think the one good thing is us recognizing that gives us the opportunity to fix it. Like, how do we become productive? How do we do more with less? And I think over the last, call it 5 years, we had to figure out a way through over, under, and a lot of companies, and I'm not just talking real estate, I'm talking automotive, I'm talking manufacturing, I'm talking venture capital. They were all down 20 to 30%. I had to figure out staffing issues because they couldn't get people into the office. What does hybrid remote work from? What do big cities look like versus little towns like Park Hill? We are having conversations we didn't have time to have during the craziest time in all of our lives,
Right.
where we weren't paying attention to the paperwork on how much money we were spending on software and staffing and staging and all the other things, right?
Fear.
And I think some conversations better than no conversation. How do you balance that though with the fact that you're an active real estate agent and in now these types of commentaries and seeing so much growth on the media side? Like,
Yeah, it changes every day how I'm able to balance it all.
you shoot like one specific day?
Yeah. So Cortez, like I said, my partner on the podcast is on my real estate team. So I rely on him heavily for planning the speaking points. So I'll have an hour to kind of review beforehand.
Sure.
And I keep myself updated too. Like that's part of my job as a realtor, to keep myself updated on the economy so that I'm actually able to speak on the points that he gives me. But he does a lot of the pre-planning for me. Just like, I have team members that focus on leasing for me. And then I have the admin team. And then, everybody kind of has their thing that can make a whole team function where they're not lacking in one area if they're focusing too much time on the next area. But yeah, we shoot every Tuesday. I have, it's very important for me anyways, to hone in on my skill, which is really being of service to my clients and what they need in the moment, right? And getting everything up to speed with what they need to accomplish or pull off, while other things can be kind of working in the background without my direct attention on it.
Sure.
So, some people don't like the word delegating, and it doesn't mean that I'm better and I need to delegate to somebody else. It just means I need this to be handled over there so that as a whole, we can function properly, where I'm not leaving my clients not understanding what's happening with their house sale being listed while I'm trying to teach myself the talking points of the podcast.
Sure.
So it's definitely been a work in progress of getting those things kind of in place, and things change, right? So it's almost like, playing whack-a-mole sometimes, of, having one thing good and then, little fires over here. And
Sure.
As a busy realtor, sometimes it's like little fires everywhere, little things. But being able to lean on my team, lean on my support systems, and really trust that they have the same goal as me and where I want to build this thing.
Yep.
That's been a huge game changer for my business.
And I want to dig into actually that next, like the proportion of how do you pick the right people, the culture, is it systems, is it people that's the solution? Before that, though, somebody told me once, it was a pastor actually when I was getting married to Shannon, he's like, you're going to have your 5 aspects in your life, and you're going to have a liter of water, and you can only take care of those 5 aspects. Over time, I've refined them to my own aspects, and it's faith, family, fitness, fun, finances, in that order. Because before it used to be, I got to work really hard to take care of my family, but if you're not taking care of the other aspects, you're not a fun person to be around, and then you end up not being great at your job because the other 4 are falling apart, right? So, if you had a liter of water, I think that's every business owner in this room is going to have components in their life where sometimes you will sacrifice the fitness piece a little bit because you need to be in a different place in other aspects of your life. But when you're running the organization, so you're running a real estate company and you're basically running a media company, you're choosing, and staging. She's one of the best stagers I've ever seen. I asked her, I'm like, do you have your own staging company? She's like, yeah, actually, I kind of started one. I have a partner that kind of runs it with me. I'm noticing like you partner with talent who's passionate about that one thing. Do you use any systems? Is it frequency of communication? Like, how do you maintain the leaders in your organization to execute on the things that you are partnered on?
The way I do my business is I want to pay people extremely well and incentivize them extremely well where they want to succeed as bad as I do. So no longer are you going to feel like you're an employee on a salary and I expect all of this and I'm going to make this much money and you just get a little piece. You are going to be so incentivized, like the staging company, where yes, I started it and I kind of have a vision, but now you're going to be making just as much as I am. So you are just as incentivized for, to continue this to the end goal as I am. And I think my support staff feel that way too. So again, I work with a lot of investors with a ton of leases that sometimes having 25 leases gets to be too much, especially when you have 15 listings that are in bidding wars or, buyers that want to offer on something that has a preemptive offer. So, right. So incentivizing them too, where if everything is kind of handled through them, and of course they can't go into the house and show it, but they can do a lot more than you think if they're educated enough, where they're incentivized to have a piece of that commission, right? My team is on a structure that's very different than a lot of team structures, and I'll just be frank with it. A lot of team members, or a lot of teams are usually 50-50, but the team leader pays, a lot of their fees. So you join the team, you're 50-50, but you don't really have that much risk because your team leader pays for it. So I've set mine up because I want little entrepreneurs like myself, where all of your fees are on yourself. You actually pay me a fee to be on the team, but you have a way higher split. So if you're transacting, those fees are very, very small, but you're on 70-30, and then you get yourself to 90-10, right? And then you pay a monthly fee. that $500 fee to me a month is very small if you're doing 20 deals at 90-10. And now you're incentivized and you're going to stay because you're at 90-10. And we have such a good thing going and we're all kind of friends that why would you leave if you're on 90-10 and go to a brokerage and be on your own at 90-10, right? So people that have left my team who have said it's too expensive to be a part of your team, and that's okay. It just means that they're not producing. And it's okay, especially with agents starting out. I completely understand, having been through, my career at this point, being on a team at 50-50, where the team leader takes a way bigger chunk of your own sale, but you don't have risk. So I've taken away some of the risk of myself, but it creates little entrepreneurs that are just so incentivized to grow this thing like me, where I no longer become like the big boss that you're going to resent 10 transactions down, that I'm still taking 50%. You're going to keep a lot of your money, but it's also going to in turn put more signs on the lawn, and build this thing where it becomes, we all have a similar vision, because how many teams at 50-50, they do have a bigger revolving door than I do. As soon as they up to, I don't need to pay 50% to my team leader anymore. I'm out of here.
For sure. And what she's talking about, just to give people a little glimpse into how the real estate industry works, you'll have teams where literally if you join that team, every single transaction you do, whether you are a source or it's a team generated deal, you're paying 50% of that deal to the leader in perpetuity, right? Forever, because they run the team, and it doesn't matter whether you're generating your own business or team business, it's going to be what it's going to be. And the ones that I've seen succeed over index on the service that they provide, and they usually stay really small because they keep a really small group well fed. Our industry is interesting because you'll see an agent being the number one agent in Canada that has 1,000 people on their teams. They're more of a brokerage than they are an agent, because they can't be operating on the same kind of team perspective. We took a completely different look to our brokerage because we own a brokerage. And I tell people we're not a brokerage. We don't recruit, no office count, no expansion. We're a company that specializes in marketing and sales of real estate. We have asset class experts and location experts, where Nathan, wherever he is, knows St. Thomas, grew up in St. Thomas, knows it like the back of his hand. He's been with me for over 10 years. And I know I can trust Dave if he's I want to crush a project there. Me and Nathan are doing it together because he even knows some streets and areas better than I do. So I'm not going to screw up your deal just because I want to just do the whole thing myself. What she's talking about is the scarcity mindset in real estate, where you do have a lot of agents that they're very concerned about what they're paying without actually looking at what are you actually doing in this business and what are your ambitions long term? Do you actually want to be an agent in production, or do you want to look like an agent on Instagram so you can go and recruit people and sell courses? Because that's the thing.
100%. And it's almost like the amount of podcasting courses and things that I've seen.
There's a lot.
There is a lot, but I think it really comes down to attracting talent and keeping. How do you attract talent? But how do you keep talent?
Sure.
How do you keep talent?
And this will work for, I'm seeing builders, developers, other people. How do you, I guess, core values, what do you look for, and how do you attract and keep talent? That'd be a great question.
Yeah, my brand has evolved into me showcasing myself more, and the brand followed. So I find that a lot of agents, especially when they start, they spend all this money on getting the perfect color scheme and looking all perfect on Instagram, and that's their brand. But is it really your brand? So I started just filming videos about, I want to educate my clients. I want you to feel like you can come to me if you have a problem 3 years down the road and your toilet just exploded because you don't have a contact. You know that I'm going to answer my phone because I actually care about you. I am known to talk somebody out of a deal because I really don't. And I'm not. If somebody's in love with a house, I'm not going to trash talk the house, but I want to kind of align their vision with smart financial decisions while also helping them find something that they love. So I think actually undertaking I care about people more than the transaction, right? If you're going to work with me and it's 3 years down the line, I'm not going to be frustrated with you. If we lose 10 offers, I'm not going to be frustrated with you. So getting on that level with a client where they feel comfortable that there's zero pressure at any time. If I can just be of service and educate you, and that's all that it ended up being, because now you've been hired in the States and you need to move away, I've done my job, right? Did I affect you in a positive way, right? Even if it doesn't result in a sale for any sort of reason, in that mindset, it does result in a sale because that person speaks about me to their friend, to their uncle that lives there, to anybody else. It goes like this if you do a really good job and don't treat people like a number. And you get a feeling working with people, whether it's, going into a coffee shop and how they serve you. Are you going to go back? You're going to go back based on a feeling.
Mhm.
The coffee can be crap, but if you're treated well,
Sure.
you'll go back for that coffee.
Yeah.
Versus the best cup of coffee in the world, but the people there are miserable.
Yeah.
Or you feel like, nobody cares about you. You're not seen. So it's about wanting people to feel like I'm here to help you rather than sell you. I think that's a big value of mine. People that follow me know that I'm extremely, extremely close with my family. They're my best friends, so I'm very big on, similar to you, like, why am I doing this? Why do most people, especially around my age, have this goal to make money so bad? They want to make money for what, right? Can that be translated back into your life where you're actually helping the people you care about, right? My parents are in Florida right now, and I went to their house and just did massive renovation for them to surprise them. And it's like, how nice that, and not even so that I get appreciated. It's like, I am so happy that I get to do that for them rather than, oh, look at me, what I'm able to afford for you. It's like, I feel good because I have allowed myself to be able to take care of the people that I love. And then that similar mindset to your clients. And a lot of clients that I've worked with are my friends to this day. Like Sasha, they're freaking, I would have dinner with them any day.
They have a baby.
They are the best. And then seeing those milestones, I texted Sasha, I'm like, hey, like, how's the house kind of thing? She's like, I had a baby. I'm like, you had a baby. Like, how nice that I get to be a part of that.
Yeah, it is truly a blessing if you can think about it that way. I see Trevor, I've known him for years, done lots of different conversations around business that wasn't business, and then we actually do business, and it doesn't feel like we're really working. We're shopping with friends, and then he refers us a friend. We help them solve a solution of doing a transition, and you kind of fall in love with the people in this business. The money becomes a byproduct of it. But going back to our conversation, when you have somebody, say, within your organization that's not tracking to those principles, and this goes back to what you said earlier, like, you may want to live in Toronto where you have full access to go to the Rogers Center, go to every restaurant you want, you're a foodie, you want to be in the mix, amazing. Or maybe you want to live in Park Hill, go kayaking, go to Grand Bend Beach, 2 different tools. In our business, maybe you want to work at a place that does 10,000 deals a year with 1,000 agents, and you're just volume, and you don't necessarily care about the individual transaction. That's okay. Like, there's a place there for you since you're not with her team. How do you identify that? How do you try and stay corrected? Or when do you decide that it's maybe time to part ways?
Yeah, I get a lot of newer agents reach out to me because when you're an agent, any brokerage will technically,
Pretty much.
most brokerages will take.
Not prime.
Okay. Yeah, and see, because we share similar values, but a lot of agents, especially, the bigger, like Royal LePage, Remax, if you go to that brokerage on your license, they will want you. So most teams, especially the big teams that focus on volume, they want you because they just want a body because, it's
Well, you'll probably bang out 3 to 12 transactions a year, the fee structures, and not to disparage any other business model, because it's just our business model is just not that. Right. That's okay. I don't think my model would work with that many people, the way that those compensation plans are structured.
Yeah, and so it's so I do get a lot of people reaching out and wanting to either meet for coffee and wanting some mentorship, and I'm big on mentorship, and I want to give back because where you and I originally got connected, the REC team, Simeon, who is the leader, was a massive mentor for me. So now I'm very much, I know how much he's changed my career and even changed my life just with how he does things, and I kind of recreated my own. Like, how nice would it be to see my team members kind of like take on the same kind of thing? But anyways, I do have a lot of people, and I'm picky in a way that if you're not aligned with the culture that I have here, that is going to be there's going to be way more damage to me than if you did do 10 extra deals here, which paid me whatever.
Yeah.
I've had some people obviously come and go because, again, if you're a new agent, $500 a month, I have a $2,400 initiation fee. That's scary for people. And so it is about mindset too. And then we have a 3-month kind of like, let's get a feel, right?
Sure.
I do rely too on, so my support team, my main support is my younger sister, who is a whiz at a computer. So that's been extremely important. And then I have like the senior agents on my team. I value what they have to say. And so if they are feeling a certain way too, let somebody else, like, that is important that I respect your opinion, even though, yes, you're on my team. I want to know what you have to say about this. right? I'm not the one just making the decisions and whatever, you just have to listen to my decisions. Like you're a part of this. So yeah, I have seen some people come and have had to leave. I've had to unfortunately say, this isn't a fit, and it's because of how some situations were handled, and that's not the brand or that's not the look that I can stand behind. So I've had to make, and in any business, you're going to have some tough conversations where some personalities don't align and you have to part ways, but I'm not afraid to do that.
And I think it's actually the best thing that you could ever go through, right? Being through it myself, I'm sure anybody here that's ran companies, that pain is actually getting you closer to the vision of what you were actually trying to create. And I think some of the lessons that she gave would work for any organization that you're trying to create, any media company, real estate business. Having the right people in your ecosystem, the right leaders around you, and then taking a hard look at yourself and really checking in and seeing what are my actual values. Am I doing work that fulfills me and brings those people closer to me? Because I think that's where you're going to find true happiness in the work that you do. And I think that's where I'm going to end this. I think that making sure that you all leave here with better relationships and just wanting to sit down and figure out what your core values are, what type of work you want to be doing, who you want to be doing it with. I think there's great opportunity. I think listen to her podcast, you'll hear all kinds of opinions on all the things happening in the world. I think there's a lot of opinions on the things happening in the world. But I think it's a result of 20 years of absolute abundance. And I think we're going through a period right now where people are refining everything about their own personal lives, how their businesses are running, economically being put through the ringer. But what I'm really excited about is I think on the other side of that, the ones that I'm seeing that are here, the ones that I'm seeing that I'm in partnership with in the community, they're finding a way over, around it, or under it. And once the economy picks up and things turn a corner, they are going to be absolutely crushing it. Because if you can get through tough times and be happy in the work that you're doing, imagine when things are absolutely ripping. So anybody that wants to make a connection with Brooke, make sure you make time to make an introduction, follow each other, send messages. Hey, I met you at the podcast. If you're watching this on replay, send her a DM. She's a legitimate good person. I've dealt with her on multiple transactions now. She's taking care of my family. So I appreciate you for making the time to drive down. Thank you, Brooke.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Awesome.